Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Happy Friday. Welcome to Patch and Play. This is, I'm going to say, technically the first Patch and Play stream. We had one last week, my first attempt to do this, but had a little bit of technical difficulty. This time I've thoroughly vetted that everything is good, so we should be off to the races. Welcome, everyone. So yeah, this is a hopefully a weekly stream that I'm going to be doing where I have nothing particular planned. I just want to start a patch from scratch and answer questions if there are any, and kind of work with anyone who is watching to do whatever we would like to do. Most of my videos on YouTube are musical performances where I finished a patch and I'm just performing something that I've set up over the course of hours. And I have these captions that sort of explain what the patch is doing, but you don't get to see start from finish, like kind of how it got constructed. And so for people that are really interested in the detail, or people that are newer that kind of don't really see how you get from a zero state to what you're seeing in a musical performance, there's been some requests to see more of the process. And so I thought this was really the best format to do that, because there's kind of, no expectation that we come up with anything excellent by the end of this. Whereas if I have a prepared video, I'm, recording a lot and I don't know if it's going to turn out. And I think, making it a little more interactive so we can focus on like what people are interested in, what they'd like to know, is probably a good format for this. Let's do some quick audio tests to make sure that everything is actually working. So maybe I will plug in an oscillator and we'll just see if we can hear. Okay, there's an oscillator coming from Castor and Pollux, and just want to make sure that everyone can hear me, hear the sound of my voice over the sound of the modular, and that it's not too loud or my voice isn't too loud. They're both audible. I can hear myself okay. It's a little quiet. Let me try turning up my headphones. And if anyone has feedback about it being too loud or too quiet, do let me know. We can always adjust as we go. So yeah, I have nothing in particular planned. So if there are questions or someone wants to know about a particular module, do let me know and we can focus on that. And if not, I will just try to come up with something and we'll see where it goes. So let me reset Pam to start. Let's do maybe something a little slower, 110 BPM. And let's see, what do we want to focus on? So one change that I made to the case kind of at the last minute was this guy here, Vice Verga, which is a sequential switch from Noise Engineering. This is kind of a spot that I swap out more frequently depending on what I want to do. Recently I've had IntelliGel Stomp in this spot, which is like a guitar I/O interface that you can use for either an effects send to go in and out of the case to guitar pedals or back, or you can just plug the guitar directly into the return input and kind of use it as a mini amp, I guess. But I'm not going to be doing any guitar on this stream, so it was kind of a waste having that in the case, and so I thought I'd swap it back out for the Vice Verga. And so maybe we should find a way to use this. I haven't used it a whole lot. The main way that I had been using it is with this module over here, the VC Transitions, which is like my favorite performance module. I've talked about it in a few different videos, but it's got like 5 CV outputs, and there's a little slider here at the bottom that you can slide back and forth, and this kind of like increases a voltage out of all 5 outputs from left to right, and then these little pots here set sort of the maximum and minimum voltages per jack as you slide. So you can use it as like a macro performer where you're controlling 5 different parameters at once. And then I had those 5 inputs going into jacks on the switches, and then pressing the button to switch to the next switch allowed me to have 2 sets of destinations for the CV here. So I've really just used this as, sort of like a CV sort of bus, I guess, and a gateway to destinations. But I've never tried doing audio through this, so that might be something fun to try. If we stick in... Oh, I guess I should say what it actually does. So this is a sequential switch, so the jacks on the left are inputs, and the jacks on the right are outputs. And I think by default they kind of go across, so the in 1 goes to out 1, in 2 goes to out, or in 2 goes to out 2, etc. But then you can advance with this button, and it'll kind of change which input corresponds to which output. So you can sort of send signals to multiple destinations back and forth. And it does CV or audio. So if we put an audio signal in it, then we can sort of switch back and forth between 2 different sounds, and you're only hearing one at a time. And I think if we change back and forth rapidly, it might create kind of an interesting sound. Let's try plugging in some oscillators and see what we get. So I guess I should actually wire up the mixer and everything first, so we can hear whatever I play. So this is Zermixa, which is my mixer. And let's plug the main outputs of Zermixa into the Mordax data so that we can see a visualization of the waveforms whenever we're playing something. And then from Mordax data, we will go into our output module. Okay, so now I should be able to plug anything into the mixer and have it routed through. So yeah, let's start with Castor and Pollux, I guess. So that's a nice beefy voice. Okay, so let's do... I can use a really short cable for this, actually. Oh wait, no, the point is that we want to go into vice versa, so let me actually use a long cable. So we're going to patch from this guy into the first input, vice versa, and then from vice versa into the mixer. So let's take like the first output into the first channel of the mixer. And let's see, do we hear anything? I don't hear anything. I also don't see anything on data, but I haven't turned on the waveforms. Oops. All right, it's on, so we're not getting a signal. Why is that? Oh, I'm muted, of course. Okay, I need to turn up my volume. Again, tell me how the volume of the modular audio compares to my voice. It's a little quiet for me, but from my previous tests, I think I have to turn down the modular pretty low so it doesn't get too loud. Okay, there we've got the waveform on display up here. Left channel in green, right channel in blue. That's just the audio. And if I press the advance, so right now we have the audio coming in jack 1, coming out jack 1. I think if I press advance, yeah, it goes away. So I don't know if you can see on the camera. Let me switch to the left case. Volume's okay. Great, thanks for letting me know. I don't know if you can see very clearly, there's like a little LED right here. And the LED is showing which jack the signal's being routed to. Looks like it's kind of on reverse right now. Let me change it to forward. So every time I press the advance button, the light changes to the next one. And we only hear something when the first input is routed to the first output, because there's nothing plugged into the secondary outputs. There's also this grouping switch. I don't know if you can see the text on there, but that left toggle switch is for grouping, and the settings are 8, 4, and 2. This determines like which inputs, like basically where the inputs cycle. So in the 8 setting, which is what I have now, every time I press advance, it goes to the next output all the way down the panel. If I go to 4, then it sort of splits the module into 2 simultaneous 4-lane switches. See now that there's 2 LEDs on, top and bottom. And so when I press advance, like 1 is going to 1, 4 is going to 4, and then 2 to 2, 5 to 5. You can kind of see how they advance together. So in this case, maybe let's go to the 2 mode, the bottom one. So now we have 4 independent 2-lane switches. So this is the way that I use it with the VC transitions, where I'm just sending, CV signals. And so if I advance, it's just toggling back and forth between 2 states, like the odd outputs and the even outputs. So if we put in, actually maybe what we'll do is this. We'll put, Castor and Pollux has 2 separate oscillators. Let me switch to the overhead again. Actually, let's look at the right case. So this has 2 separate oscillators. Castor and Pollux are the 2 sides. You can mix the 2 signals together into a single mono signal with this center jack, but you can also get each half as a separate output for the star, this filled in star and the empty star. So maybe let's try taking the left one and the right one into 2 separate inputs on vice versa. And we'll put this into a different channel. Channel 2. Let's unmute that. So I'm actually hearing both. Are we hearing both? Let me pan them so it's really obvious. So now channel 1 will be on the right side, channel 2 will be, or sorry, channel 1 will be on the left, channel 2 will be on the right. I'm hearing them both at once, which is kind of unexpected. I guess what it is not that there's only one CV active at a time, but like they're always all active, and it's just a matter of which one is being routed. So I guess 1 is going to 1, 2 is going to 2, and then if I advance, then we have 1 going to 2, 2 going to 1. So essentially, currently this should just be sort of switching the left and right channel when I advance it. Which is honestly kind of a cool effect already. Let me try, let me tune this, and let's see, let's get, that's pretty low. This is one thing I don't like about Castor and Pollux, is it's like kind of hard to get a bass pitch in a higher range. Let me just give it a bit of a boost from, let's get like a static voltage coming from Quadrat. So if I put in a cable here into the pitch, then this voltage coming from the first channel of Quadrat will just arbitrarily increase the base amount of CV coming in. or for the pitch. So I can turn this up to, well, let's put this kind of at center. And maybe get like a C2. And then let's see how the left channel compares. Well, it's about the same. So let's tune this one up a fifth. Sounds about right. Okay, so now we have the two oscillators detuned from each other. So the left side is playing C2. And the right side is playing G2, as best as I can get them. This is an analog oscillator, so there'll be some fluctuation in pitch. And in theory, it should get a little more stable the longer I have it on, once the circuit warms up. Okay, so we're now... Hello. We're now pitched correctly. So there, pressing the advance swaps the two channels back and forth. So what I'm curious about is like making that switch happen super fast to create like something that you don't perceive as such an obvious back and forth switch. So there's a advance input. Oh, let me switch to the left case. Let me switch to the advance input. Oh, just checking the chat. I've had a Quadrat for a year, didn't know it could be a voltage source. Yeah, Quadrat is like, it's not a very exciting module, but it's so useful. I mean, I use it in probably almost every patch. So yeah, let me turn this off for a second. If you don't have anything patched into the input, then I think it's just like 5 volts coming out of the out, and then you can use the pot as like an attenuator for that signal. And so that can be used as like essentially a manual control, like giving anything a pot that didn't have one. And then of course these chain into each other. So if you have something coming in B, for example, and coming out B and nothing patched into A, then whatever position the channel 1 pot is set at will be a voltage that's added into whatever's coming on B, and the two of them will be, the combination of the two will come out of B. So there's a lot of like really useful things that you can do. In addition to the usual, mixing, attenuating 4 different signals, attenuverting with the bipolar mode. It's very, very useful. Okay, so let's get a blue cable. Oh, the convention that I tend to use for cable colors is like what the color of the cable is kind of like what sort of signal it is. So like blue and this kind of red and the sort of salmon color are audio. I would just use all red, but I just don't have enough cables for the amount of audio I usually route. So I'm trying a new thing where the salmon color is kind of like the end of the line, like the very last thing going into the mixer. And the red ones are like intermediate audio signals going from anything other than the mixer, or going to anything other than the mixer. So that's the color scheme there. And then I use green cables like this for... green cables like this are for CV and pitch signals, like anything that's like variable. Let me go back to overhead. And then blue cables are for gates and clocks. So let me see if this is long enough. I need a longer one. Yep, I need a long one for this. So blue cable, like so. That is for clocks. So let's take... I'll just use output 1 on PAM. We'll set that into the advance input. Actually, let's bring the sound back in. Let's stick that in the advance. And then let me start it actually really slow. So I'm going to turn the clock down to like 60. And then as soon as I start the clock from PAM, this should be advancing with every beat. Yep, there you go. So if I increase this rate of the clock, actually, you know what I'll do is I'll change it to 2x. the tempo, and then 4x the tempo. I mean, that's already kind of cool. If there was like a drum beat here, that would already give you like a sort of a bass with a single note. And, whoops. So let's try increasing the tempo. I think even at 120, it's not exactly audio rate, so you can still kind of hear that it's toggling back and forth. Let me change the multiplier again. Here we go. So it's now sending a clock at, what did I set it at? Like 160 or something? Oh, that's just 120, but it's 32 times the BPM. And you start to get that growl. It's like almost like an overdrive from getting towards like almost like audio rate modulation. Let's keep going up. You hear that? It starts to break up. And then at 96 times, we get this really interesting kind of like, you don't hear the like switch between left and right very clearly. It kind of, I mean, it's obviously kind of got like a stereo image that's wobbling back and forth, but it's almost like more smooth. Let me try messing with the waveforms, because right now we're using kind of a mixed waveform. So this is 2 saw waves. Let's actually try it with pulse waves. And then you can, oh, let me switch to the right case so you can see what I'm doing. So with these little smaller pots on Castor and Pollux are used to control the amount of each of the waveforms. It's got like a saw wave, a pulse wave, and then a sub-octave pulse. And you can sort of mix the amount of each of the 3 of those that you want for each of the 2 oscillators. So what I did is I turned down the saw wave and turned up the pulse wave on each side, and then these 2 big pots here control the width of the pulse for both left and right, or the right on the right, left on the left. But you can sort of modulate their amount over time. Let's get some modulation going on those. Maybe I'll just use a couple of LFOs from Oct. Maybe some fast ones, because we're kind of doing some gnarly stuff here. Actually, you know what? Let me turn off the alternation of the switch for a second. Go back to our regular tone, just so you can hear what this is doing. So I'm now modulating the pulse width of the square wave for each side. It's a little hard to see on, I guess because it's audio rate. Let me see if we can visualize that a little bit. Switch to the left case. I don't know if you can see that on Data's screen, but we're looking at like square waves where the pulse width is changing. So the distance between the sort of bumps or dips, however you look at it, in the waveform kind of changes over time with the rate of this. And we can change the rate of modulation, obviously, with Oct. So I can make this itself very fast, which will give you some crazy kind of sort of digital noise almost. It's kind of cool how it like breaks up a little bit. I think once this is like, let's turn the vice versa back on. Interesting. I might want to attenuate this a little bit. I wonder if it would sound better without the like sort of breakups. Let's do that. Because right now I have the, you know, the full strength of these bipolar LFOs from Oct going into the Castor and Pollux pulse width. And I wonder if attenuating the range of that pulse width a little bit would sound better. So let's do, so this is just an attenuator, like basically like Quadrat. Let me unplug these. So we go into the cross inputs. This is 4 channels of attenuation with the slider. And so we'll do the rightmost one in there and the leftmost one in here. And so now I can, as I bring this up, like if I have these in the top position, if I have these sliders in the top position, then we're getting the full strength like we were before. But as I pull these down, the depth of the modulation won't be as strong. It's kind of cool. It gives like a little sudden pulse of the, get kind of a little stab of sort of pulse wave sound that comes in and out. I don't know if you can hear that. As the wave gets to, I guess, like a certain point. It's interesting. Let's try turning up the modifier even more. Oh, that sounds cool. More? Oh, I guess that's as fast as it goes. So 192 times the BPM is as fast as of a clock as I can get from PAM. You know, in its default prefixes. And you hear that kind of higher pitch that just comes in? I'm actually not sure what causes that. I forget how the pulse width. Oh, let me go back to it. Oh yeah, you can see it. I forget how the pulse width controls actually work on this. Whether the incoming CV is just added to the position of the pot, or whether these become attenuators for the incoming signal. But I can just kind of use my ears. Have them set at different values. So there's a bit more of a stereo image. All right, well, listening to that same drone is getting a little annoying, so maybe we'll give this sound some rhythm, maybe even some melody. So let's go to, we want to maybe send this through a VCA. So instead of going directly into vice versa, I will go into the quad VCA. Let's go to the left case. So let's unplug these and we'll go into channels 1 and 2 of quad VCA. And then from there, we will go back into vice versa. So this will just let me modulate anything about the signal before it gets to the switch. Okay, so we're still not hearing anything because I have the VCAs fully closed. But if I just turn up the levels, we'll hear it again, in theory. Why are we not hearing anything? Because I have these plugged in backwards. That is why. Output. Wait, no, that's right. I should be hearing something. No? Why am I not hearing anything? would expect to hear... What? The levels are completely open. Did this module die or something? Let me give it a CV signal so I can confirm whether or not it is working. Oh yeah. That's weird. Am I doing something very obviously wrong here? Huh. I mean, there's power to the module. I see the green light is, I don't know if you can see, I've got the cable in the way, but the CV is LED is turning on. See that? So it's definitely plugged in. It's getting power. What am I doing wrong here? I should be hearing the output of these. Let me try using Quadrat maybe instead, in case there's something just really obviously wrong I'm doing. So we want the outputs of the first two channels of this Quadrat, and then these guys should go here. What? Still nothing. I'm doing something very obviously wrong here, but I'm not thinking what it is. No sound at all. What? Okay, let me be really dumb about this. Let's skip the vice verga. I'm making some sort of obvious mistake, but it is not. This is the beauty of live patching. It's like, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing all the time. You get to see all the mistakes as well as all of the successes. Okay, so let me be really clear about this. Output of Castor and Pollux. Let's go straight into data to make sure we're getting some signal from Castor and Pollux. Okay, we definitely are. So let's go into A and B. And then if I unplug these, we should get or I guess, let's go straight into data. Okay. Definitely getting a signal. But if I plug these in, then I hear nothing. Why is that? Oh, I'm such a moron. No? I still hear nothing. These two channels muted? Oh. Because these cable... Oh no, those are right. Why am I not hearing anything? You know, I know there's signal because I'm actually seeing it here. Oh, I'm an idiot. I've unplugged this. So now it's coming into the mixer, but just not to the output. Okay, I don't know. This is this is so confusing. Like, we see that this is working, so I don't know what the problem is. All right, so let's put this guy output. Let's put the output of the mixer back into data. Yep, there's the sound. So why was this exact same thing not working with the quad VC? Oh, maybe just because I had it muted on the mixer. That's the dumb mistake I was making. That makes a lot more sense. Sometimes the simplest things will trip you up. Okay, so let's do this again. Let's plug in the left side into the quad VC as input, and the right side into input 2. And then these guys, the output. There we go. Okay, I'm an absolute moron. It was literally just I had the channels muted on the mixer. That's why I wasn't hearing anything. Nebulae, welcome to the stream. Okay, cool. So let's turn these off so that they're off by default, and then let's give this an envelope. Let's do... So I'm going to use the Quadrax, which is conveniently right next to it. So take the output of channel 1 from Quadrax, which was my envelope generator, into the CV input of channel 1. And then let's get a clock from Pamela's Pro Workout. Let's see, is this cable going to be long enough? I need one a little longer. Okay, let's take channel 2 from Pam into the trigger. Okay. All right, so now we've just got a quarter note clock coming from Pamela's Pro Workout that's triggering the envelope generator, and then each pulse of the envelope goes into the quad VCA, which will briefly increase the amplitude of the two signals. And this normals, so I just have one cable that's controlling both channels. Whatever signal is coming in on the first channel goes to the second channel if there's nothing patched in. Okay, and let's get a more interesting rhythm going on this channel. So, channel 2, let's go to also 4x. Well, let me make it plucky so we can really hear. And let's do like a Euclidean pattern. So if I go over to, I don't know if you can see, actually give me some feedback whether you can read the text on the screen of Pamela's Pro Workout right here in the corner. I'm using a new camera on this stream that I haven't used for a stream before, and I think, like, for me, when I look at the monitor, it's pretty legible, but I don't know how it comes across on YouTube. So I'm going to do a Euclidean pattern. Let's give it 16 steps with 7 triggers, maybe 9 triggers. Kind of visible. You can't read the text. That's a shame. Well, I can sort of explain what I was doing there. So, a Euclidean pattern generator is something where you have like a clock, and then you divide the beat into a certain number of steps, and then you fill in those steps with either a trigger or not a trigger, and the number of triggers in that range is like distributed evenly across the number of steps. So unfortunately you can't see the visualization. Oh, maybe you can. I don't know if maybe you don't have to be able to read the text, but on the bottom right part of the screen of Pam's Pro Workout is a sort of a visualization of what the Euclidean pattern is doing. So there's 16 little boxes, 2 rows of 8, and the boxes that are filled in are ones where triggers have been placed. So the more triggers I add, if I go all the way up to 16, then every single pulse will actually send out a gate. And if I do half of them, then it'll alternate. So it's like one on, one off. But if I use an odd number of steps, then it like gives these kind of unusual patterns that are more interesting. So usually if you use like a number of steps and a number of triggers that don't evenly divide, then you'll get this sort of off-kilter rhythmic pattern that can be quite cool. And the lower the number, the more sparse the triggers, and the higher you go, you get more of a kind of groove. And each time you go to a different odd number, or like a different number that creates sort of a different ratio between steps and triggers, you get a different rhythm. That one's pretty good. So that's just what's triggering the envelope. And then I can change the fall time of each note with quadraks. Maybe let's modulate the fall time so that changes a bit. So let's get... Maybe we'll just use stages. So if I take an output of stages into CVA... so stages is like one of my favorite modules. This is such a brilliant design. But it's got these 6 channels that can be pieced together from left to right to create different sort of modulation shapes. I'm just using the one channel. If I hold down this button, then it goes into LFO mode. Let me see what this is inputting. Yep. So I don't know if you can see the LED on the rightmost slider will glow in time with the LFO that it's outputting. And the higher that I put the slider, the faster the LFO. And so I'm using this to modulate the fall time of the envelope from coming from quadraks. So you hear the length of the notes is changing. And this LFO is not synced to the beat. So it's not going to repeat exactly the same time. Or it's not going to repeat in exactly the same way on each even number of beats. It's got a really snappy envelope by default. Guess that's too much. All right, well, to obviously make this sound actually good, we're going to need some delay. But of course, let me turn that off for a second and help me remember that I've just muted the sound on the mixer. And so if I confuse myself later with what happened to the sound, I will not confuse myself. Okay, so let's get some more long cables. You know, it's funny patching this way because usually, as you've maybe seen in my other videos, I have the cases oriented vertically with the like light colored case above the black case. And so to go from one case to the other is usually, I don't need such long cables because the distance is usually short, but I'm using up all my long cables here. So hopefully we won't run out. All right. So on the mixer, I'm going to take, oh, this is not long enough. I need the really long cables. Comes in handy having these big long cables. Oh yeah, I'm already running out. So we're going to have to use a different color and break my color convention. All right, let's do... So the mixer has 2 stereo effect sends. So I can take output from send A into the input on C legs, which is my fancy delay and reverb module. And let's take the green coming out of C legs. Oh, I should show you the overview. There we go. Output of C legs. And this goes into the return on channel A. Yep. And then let's unmute. And actually, I don't really need this on 2 channels. I can just put this into the right input. No? Why am I only hearing one thing? What have I done? I'm not hearing the right channel. Oh, it's because I panned these. There we go. There's our stereo image back. Okay, so now let's... Again, I guess the screen is too small to see, or on mixer. I guess you can't see the screen. Oh yeah, I don't see it at all. Anyway, there's a screen right there where I'm pointing. I think it's a little, you can't really read the text on it. But if I press these button here, then I'm controlling settings for channel 1, and I can increase the amount of audio that it's sending from channel 1 into the delay. Let's put it all the way up. And are we hearing delay? I am not. Why is that? Oh, that's because I have the delay channel muted. Let's try that again. Let's go to the left case. And try to make this visible without any cables covering. Here, let's do this. Let's go over these. Some people don't like modular because of this aspect of like the patch cables are getting in the way of the controls. It can be kind of annoying, but I kind of find it to be part of the challenge. Part of what makes modular interesting to me. Okay, it's actually pretty quiet. I think that's because I'm filtering out. There we go. So C-Legs has a built-in filter. It's kind of covered by the cables, but the right two sliders control a low pass and a high pass filter. So to fully open the filter, you have to have the left, or I guess the penultimate slider has to be all the way down, and the last slider has to be all the way up to open the filter. And then raising the left one cuts away the lows, and lowering the right one cuts away the highs. Allows you to shape the sort of frequency band of the delay. But that's full spectrum right there. Let's get this a clock so that we can sync the delay to Pam. So there's a clock input here on the top of C-Legs. And I never remember what rate of clock this is expecting. Let's try giving it 2x the BPM. Sounds pretty good. Switch to ping pong mode. I think because it's such a low tone, like we're kind of, and we're just playing the same pitch, it's a little hard to hear the delay, but I can change the time of it with this slider here on the left. And when there's a clock coming in, the slider position will be like a multiple or a division of the tempo. It's like the times are synced to the clock. Let me turn the time on this back, so we're seeing a little bit more. Let's get a pitch sequence going, I think. Oh yeah, you can hear you hear that when when I mute the main channel, you still hear the echoes a little bit. You can really hear how it's going back and forth. Let's get a pitch sequence going. Okay, so let me take, maybe we'll do like an ARP. Use the Bard Quartet. So this module here, the Bard Quartet, is a quantizer. So it has 4 channels that are identical, and it takes it in an arbitrary voltage, and it will, with this little sort of keyboard on the left, this like kind of mimics the layout of a musical keyboard if you turn your head sideways. You can use that to sort of snap the incoming voltages into exact divisions that match a musical scale. So it's a way of taking non-exact voltages and turning them into a pitch sequence. And it can also work as an arpeggiator, which I think is what I will do. So if we take, let's take channel 4 into the first input, I'm giving it a trigger on channel 1. And I think if I press the ARP button and then I hold down the first channel and press ARP, then the first channel starts flashing, which means it's in ARP mode. And now if I let's just put in like the C minor scale. So every time it receives a trigger, it's going to play the next note in the scale. And let's send the voltage of this. We need a very long cable. The longest that I have. Is this going to be long enough? Just barely. Okay, this is going to probably change the pitch. Let's turn this back on. Huh. That doesn't sound like it's changing pitches. Does it? Tell you what, let's take 2 green cables and add a voltage to this. So let's put this into quadrat channel 1, or channel 2 actually. Well, I'm going to do exactly what I was talking about before, where we're letting through the full voltage on the B, or the second channel of quadrat, and anything, the static value that I set on channel A is going to get added to channel B. So if I turn it all the way down, let's plug in the pitch sequence. And then as I increase A, it increases the bass note. So I think the reason that it was kind of hard to hear is because of this like crazy audio rate modulation we're doing. If I unplug the advance, then it's easier to hear the pitch change. I think when it's all the way at its lowest, it's very hard to hear the pitch change. Because there's so much kind of like hair on the sound added by this this audio rate switching that we added. Let me unplug it for a while just so we can get the pitches. So if I go into the ARP menu on this guy, then I can also control the order in which it changes. Right now I've got it in up mode. You probably can't read the panel at this resolution. Let me know if you can see it. But the sort of the sharps and the flats have little text labels on them, and in different modes they have different operations. So when I press the ARP button, it goes from like the quantizer note settings to ARP specific settings. And there's these little symbols here that show up, down, pendulum, spiral, and random. And that is essentially like the order that it's going to trigger in. So now it's just going sequentially up the scale. If I press the D sharp button, then it's going to go downward. Let me increase the pitch so it's a little easier to hear. Let me maybe remove some of the notes from the scale. I think I actually had E natural in there, which is not in the scale. There we go. Let's go to maybe like the spiral or the pendulum mode. So this will go up and then down again. cool. All right, let's get the... That's pretty cool, like a sort of an industrial voice. I feel like I need more drive on the delay. It's kind of hard to hear. There we go. I'm gonna give it a little drive. So this knob that I'm turning is the drive on the delay. So it's like essentially increasing the amount of input from the oscillator that's going into the delay circuit. And when that light turns red, that means it's clipping and we're starting to get distortion. I think I want the delay to be louder without necessarily distorting. Let me increase the trim. If I turn up... If I hold the freeze button, it increases the bass input. I just want a little bit of clipping. And maybe a little reverb too. Let's put the reverb on the mix. Maybe increase the delay time, or the reverb time. I feel like I need more input. It seems like even at max, the delay is still pretty quiet. I don't know. What does it sound like to y'all? I want the delay to be more prominent. I mean, that honestly sounds pretty cool. Again, the magic of reverb and delay is you just slap it on anything and it sounds awesome. I think we need a kick drum. How could you not have a kick drum with this? Alright, let's get another cable from Pam. Can I reach grids? Oh my god, I can't. I need something to extend this. Or maybe... I wonder if one of my long cables will actually work. Let's see, I think these are longer cables even. Are they? Oh yeah, these are longer. So let's take a cable from just the 1x fixed output on the PAM expander. And let's trigger our kick drum, which is Crater. Oh, it didn't actually plug in. There we go. And let's get the audio from Crater plugged into our mixer. Oh, that's super quiet. I guess that maybe explains why the delay is so hard to hear. I guess it's just a really loud signal from our main voice. Hold on, let me mute this for a second. The main channel. How loud is that for those listening in chat, how loud is my voice compared to the sound of the kick drum? I feel like that's much quieter than the other voice. Level check. Like, I need to turn up my audio so I can hear that a little better. Yeah. But now the other one's going to be really loud. Okay, so Crater is my... Oh, I'm showing the wrong screen. There's the right. So Crater is my kick drum module. It's just a module dedicated to making kick drum sounds. Kick is too low. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I think what I'm going to do is turn up the output on all of it. Let's try... turn it up like that, and hopefully that's a little more audible. Let me know if my voice is still too loud compared to the kick drum. And I'll just, when I bring in the melodic voice, we'll have it lower. Kick louder, even louder than this. Okay. Let's try it like that. All right. Yeah, keep giving me feedback on volume levels, because it sounds different in my headphones than it will to you. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. That's very helpful. My voice is much louder than the system. Oh, okay. Let me turn down my voice a little bit. Okay, trying now. I turned it down a little bit. If you're finding anything hard to hear, yeah, please let me know. That's very helpful feedback, because I can only guess about exactly how it sounds to you. Okay, so there's our kick drum sound. Yeah, Crater is really awesome. The left side is like the controls. Let's see, I don't know. Again, I don't know if you can read the text on the stream quality. But the left side of the knobs are about controlling sort of the thump of the kick, and the right side is about controlling the sort of snappy attack. So let me turn off the right side so you can just hear the left side. So the top knob is decay, so it's like how long it rings out. Let me turn the pitch up. All the way to the right, it lasts a long time. If I turn the pitch up, you can kind of hear it's just like rumbling. It's like a constant tone, but I can make it real snappy by turning to the left. Yeah. And then pitch is like the frequency of that tone of the sort of the fundamental. And then pitch decay is how long it takes for that sort of FM at the beginning of the signal. So I turn it all the way up. You can sort of hear the space laser sound that it makes. And then amount is like where it starts in that. So if I go all the way up, it's like a really big sweep. And then at the lowest levels, it's like you barely hear any sort of FM. So I tend to like sort of modest settings on this stuff. I don't really like a super lasery bass. Although maybe with this kind of melodic sound, it makes sense to have it a little more lasery. And I think we want one of the clipping modes on. Yeah, it's more of like a techno style bass. All right, let's bring the melodic sound back in and try to get a good level for it. I wonder if I have... Huh. Why is the first channel so much louder than the second? I don't know. Let's see if I have some trim setting different between the two of them. Doesn't look like it. But I mean, if you look at the sliders, like I have those in like almost opposite positions to get the melodic sound to not overpower the kick. Turn down the volume of the of the delay relative to the main signal. Alright, I'm gonna turn the delay down. I think that's too much. Actually, let me turn the delay off and just get the baseline level sounding good. More kick than melody, yeah. That sounds kind of balanced to me. Yeah, not bad. Give it a little more reverb. I'm going to turn down the sort of laseriness of the kick. I think it's just a little much for me. Just an issue of taste. I'm not super into the laser drum kick sound. Your mileage may vary. Not bad. Should we do a side chain on that? I think yes. So, some sidechain compression on the melodic sound will duck the volume whenever the kick drum triggers. For that, I will use Messer, which is this top right module over here. It's a compressor. So what I need to do is send, I'm going to turn this off for a second. We're going to send the melodic sound into the inputs of Messer. Yes, for the sidechain. Yes, some votes for the sidechain. Okay. And let's get end of chain. Let's see. This is probably not long enough. Okay, some output from the compressor back into the mixer. All right, let's listen. And we're going to turn up the ratio and pretty quick attack, maybe I'll just kind of be at standard settings. And then we need a copy of the kick drum. So I'm going to unplug the kick drum. We're going to plug it into this multiple up at the top. And we're going to have one copy go directly into the mixer. Let me turn that on so we can hear it. And then we need another copy of... I get a longer cable. We need another copy of the kick drum going into the sidechain input on the compressor. And that means that the compressor will use the sidechain signal for when to compress rather than the audio input. So let's bring the threshold down. As I bring the threshold down, we should start to hear that familiar pumping sound. Let me turn the delay off for a second so we can get this bass line working. There, you hear that? And if I mute the kick drum, I guess let me actually increase the fall time so we have more of a constant tone. You should be able to kind of hear how the volume on that is kind of lowering on the beat. That's from the sidechain. It's pretty exaggerated. So I'm just messing with the fall time on the melodic parts envelope to change the length of the notes. We're already modulating it a bit, but changing the baseline value by hand makes a big difference in the sound. Let's get that delay back in. I mean, that sounds pretty cool to me. I wonder if we kind of need more modulation. Let me slow down the LFO on the rise time. All right, so if I am decreasing the rate of the LFO that's being applied to the fall time of the envelope, because I think when it was super fast, like you weren't really hearing the change in rise time, because it was just kind of going back and forth to its extremes so quickly. But at this slower rate that's kind of desynced from the tempo, you really hear more variance in the fall time, and it really changes the rhythm very noticeably. Makes it a lot more interesting. What else can we do? We could maybe add, I mean, we could always add another voice. Oh, you know what might be cool is, since we started this with kind of doing this like very fast modulation of the two audio waveforms from the switch. I wonder if how it would sound if we modulated that rate. Let me turn off the kick and actually let me just turn off everything for a second. So yeah, if you're joining a little later and you didn't see the beginning of the stream, we started this patch by plugging the left and right oscillators from Castor and Pollux. So I'll go to the overhead. The left and right oscillators from Castor and Pollux are plugged into two channels of the Vice Verga, a sequential switch. And then the output of those two channels are going into the mixer. But the Vice Verga is set in like 2-channel mode. So every time it receives a trigger over this blue cable from Pam, it's going to change which input is sending to which output. So it's sort of like flipping the left and right channels back and forth. And the rate at which it switches is determined by this blue cable coming from Pam. And we have it set very fast. So it's sending a trigger 192 times per beat. So the result is that you get sort of like this like modulated sound from essentially like amplitude modulation. Let's listen to it again and I'll change the speed so you can hear the difference. So this is at 192. And I'll go down. $48. $32. $24. $16. So the slower it is, the more distinctly you can actually hear the two channels switching back and forth. Like you get more of that rhythmic element rather than sort of like a timbral change. You don't perceive it as like a single oscillator as much as you do when it's fast. So what I was thinking is like actually modulating that rate for some timbral change. So let's put it on something fairly slow so we can really hear as it changes. So this is just at 4x. But I think, let's see, how does this work? Actually, actually not sure how you modulate the rate. Let's see. Gate? I don't think that's exactly what I want. Maybe trigger? Let me try just sticking an LFO. Yeah, I agree. It sounds cool at like all the different rates, which is why I thought it would add a lot of interest. Oh, hold on, let me turn this off. I thought it would add a lot of interest to like change the rate so that the sound varies a lot. Let's take an LFO from, I guess the closest one would be stages. So let's take the next channel of stages. Let's send that into the CV1 input of Pamela. Set this in LFO mode and set it at about the same rate as the other LFO, just kind of like a medium level, so we should be able to hear the change. And let me see if this modulates the rate. Oh, unmute. I'm not sure if I'm hearing a difference. I think maybe what this is doing is just not really having the effect I was hoping for. I wanted to modulate the rate of this. Oh, maybe I go to the left. There we go. Okay, I don't think you can see on the screen. So the problem is I was going all the way to the right on the dial, past the highest settings. And the result of that was that there are different settings at that end. Then if you go negative, like to the divisions, if you go all the way to the left, then you get to what I wanted, which is the CV1 input becomes the modifier of the rate. You can probably just make out it says CV1 and there's a little vertical bar that's going up and down as the LFO changes the rate. But there you can already hear it there. That you get those kind of fast moments that are coming in and out. Let's increase the LFO rate, or just mess with it and see if we can get a good sound. Interesting. So this is kind of going between. I think this is I think it's a bipolar LFO. But basically we're going from like 1x speed to maximum speed, so you get this kind of rhythmic change. I think what I was wanting though is for it to like stay mostly in audio rate and just kind of slow down a little bit. So maybe we'll use some attenuation here, I think. I'm actually going to plug in... I think it'll help to visualize this. I'm going to put it in data. Let me turn on the yellow trace on data. And let's take that LFO and stick it into data. And then from data... Is this going to be long enough? Nope. I need a longer cable. Hold on, let me turn this off while I'm talking. Let me take a longer cable. And we want to send this CV trigger back into PAM. So I don't know if you can see. Let me know how well you can see the screen on Mordac's data, the oscilloscope. I think it should be pretty clear. So the yellow line... And let me actually put this at position at 0. Oh wait, I want it at 0, so it's right in the middle. Okay, so that is a unipolar LFO. Good to know. Let me also make it bigger. There, you see that? See how it's only on the top half of the display? The horizontal middle is 0 volts, so everything above that is positive voltage. So this is going back and forth between 0 and like 5, I guess. Which is fine. That's actually what we want. We don't, because I think on, well, actually, I don't know. I think probably on Pam's Pro Workout, the rate will stay at like essentially 1x by default, and then a positive modulation signal will increase the rate. But I don't know how you would go negative, because maybe I just can't see it because we're only giving it a positive signal. Well, actually, I can try inverting it and see what it does. If we send it through a bipolar, or if we send it through an inverter on Quadrax, or Quadrat, rather. Let's see, is this going to be long enough? Okay, so there's our original signal, and if I invert it, now it's all negative. See how it's switched when I click the unipolar to bipolar switch? There's the positive signal, and then if I invert it, turn it upside down, there's negative. So we're making it go between 0 and -5. And if I look at the screen on Pam, I can see that it's not getting any CV input. So that indicates to me that Pam takes only positive voltage on its CV input for this. And so this is not useful. Okay, let's bring this. So, but that's fine. I don't want it to go negative, because negative would be like going from 1x to like a division. So it would change like once every other beat, once every 4 beats, something like that. I just want it to be fast. So that's good. We only want it positive. And what I want to do is have the sort of baseline level be much higher and vary just a little bit at a high level, rather than going all the way from 0 to its max value. So what I want to do is kind of attenuate and offset. And so this will be another excellent use for Quadrat. Let me actually let me change this to channel 4 so I can do some offset mixing. Okay, so let's turn all the way up channel 4. Okay, so I now have the LFO going into channel 4 of Quadrat. Again, we're seeing the same thing on the yellow trace. But because of the way Quadrat works, where the left channels like mix into each other from left to right if they're not, if the output is not patched. So because I have nothing patched into channel 3 output, the static voltage that it is normaled to will be mixed into the input of channel 4. And so if I increase the knob on 3, you can see that the lowest point of the curve is going up, and the range of that LFO is now like kind of half what it was. Let me kind of do it quickly so you can see the change. So I'm just moving the knob left and right. You see how the bottom edge of the yellow trace is changing height, or it's, yeah. That's exactly what I want. I want the signal to be mostly high. So giving it an offset like this means that it'll never be at its lowest point. Let's actually listen to how that sounds. So if I turn the sound back on, and let me slow down the LFO. So you should be able to see that, actually, let's make it really slow so you can really hear the change clearly. So when the yellow line is at its lowest point, then there isn't any it's at a slow rate on Pam, so you won't hear much modulation of the signal. And at its highest point, that's when it's fastest, and you'll get most of that audio rate modulation. So as I increase the offset and keep this thing into its upper range, I guess you need to really go pretty high. Increase increase the rate of the... It's not quite what I was expecting. I'm finding that I still need to have the LFO pretty fast. Let's see, I wonder if there's... Oops. CV... Oh, I have a CV offset on PAM, actually. Maybe that's a better way to do this. Okay, let's slow down the LFO so we can try to hear the change clearly. I think there's maybe a little bit of delay between what we're seeing and what we're hearing. Hard to say. But let me try increasing the offset on the CV signal in PAM itself. So here's at 50%. CV attenuation is very high. That's the problem. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I want it at 100. Huh. Yeah, I don't know if you can see the little bar here, but it's mostly staying at max. Interesting. I think what we actually want is like a unipolar signal. Here's what I'm going to change to use a unipolar LFO from Oct. So that way the top edge isn't being cut off when I increase the offset. Let's see if I can get a faster one. Oh, that's slower. Okay, I'm going to have to increase the rate on Oct. Let's move these down lower. Oh, let me give you the full overhead so you can see what I'm doing. What was I doing? Yeah, these guys. So what I did is I'm increasing the rate of the LFOs coming from Oct, and I had the modification of the pulse width of Castor and Pollux plugged into the top ones, which are now much faster than they were before. So I moved them to a slower jack, so they're kind of more similar to what they were before. Interesting. Let's try... Alright, so no offset. Alright, so we're attenuating the incoming signal at PAM a little bit, just to kind of smooth the curve. But that's kind of what I was imagining. You're getting a little bit of like change in that kind of like FM sound, or the AM sound. I think that's pretty good. That's about what I was imagining. Let's get a little drive on the delay. How about some modulation on the delay? Feel free to ask questions, by the way, if there's anything I'm not explaining well, or specifics that you'd like to understand better. Now modulating the delay time. C-Legs also has this cool color output slider, which introduces some like noise into the delay signal. Makes it a little crispy, and it gets very noisy right at the top. Get kind of some hiss. I think modulating that value could actually be kind of cool. Let's give that a random LFO from Oct. Maybe another unipolar. So I'm plugging a unipolar LFO from Oct into the color input, the color CV input on C-Legs, and increasing the attenuverter. Maybe go all the way up. So you get that kind of hiss at the top level. That's kind of changing a little bit. I don't want it to be too overwhelming. We want a little more modulation depth on the rate. Get the delay a little wigglier. Maybe a little offset between the left and right delay times. It's maybe a little much on the modulation. I don't want it to cause a lot of pitch change, just a little bit of wiggle. C-Legs also has like a dedicated noise control, so I can introduce some like crackle. I don't know if you can necessarily hear it much, unless I turn it up really high. You hear that kind of lo-fi crackle. I don't think it really is appropriate for this particular one. It's not a very lo-fi sound. Let's see. Let's try changing the octave on the arpeggiator. Question in chat from Hobby. Is this a pre-built rack, and could you recommend a starter or beginner setup? Ooh, that's a big question. I'm not sure what you mean by pre-built. I built it myself, choosing which modules I wanted. And let's see, let me turn down the master a little bit on this. And that's A. I built it myself, choosing which modules I want. Obviously, I didn't do it all in one sitting. It was over the course of maybe a year or more that I put this together. And I spent like months researching before I bought anything. And of course, started off with only one case, not imagining that I would get two. And only when I started to fill up quickly, I realized it was kind of hard. Yeah, Bard Quartet is awesome. I did one video on it, maybe two. If you look through my channel, there's a video called like Easy Eurorack chords with Bard Quartet, where it shows using 4 voices going into Bard Quartet to make chords. Awesome module. I've actually been wanting to play with it more. But back to the beginner case question. I think you really have to decide what you want to do with modular. What I've built here is kind of like a groove box sort of thing, where it's got everything I need to make like a full track. So I can have up to eight channels on my mixer. So I can have, as many drum tracks as I want, as many melodic tracks as I want. And initially I actually built it just for drums, and I started with drums because what I wanted to do was like build weird random drum loops that I would sample into the Digitact and just do music on the Digitact primarily. But when I started with this, I discovered that I liked it so much that I was really interested in doing more in the modular itself and not just using it as drum sample material. So it really depends on what you want out of modular. If you just want it to sort of create single sounds at a time, which you're then going to sample and use in a sampler or some other environment, then I think that changes significantly the scope of what you're going to do. In my case, I'm kind of trying to do everything in one, so I've got a little bit of everything. I've got like several oscillators, several drum modules, a healthy mix of like modulation sources, effects, basically a little bit of everything, filters, VCAs. I think if you really want to get started with like really simple stuff, basically you just need probably like a sound source and maybe one sort of processor and one modulator. So like the simplest thing, if you were just going to do like a single voice that you were going to sample into something else, would be maybe an oscillator, a filter, a VCA, and a modulation source. So that way you can have, your sound, something to sort of shape the frequency content. The filter will, you'll be able to change the sound over time. The VCA is what you use to change the volume over time. And then the modulation source, like an envelope generator or an LFO, is what generates the signal that will change the sound over time. So that'll give you like a single tone. If you want to like play a melody on it or something, then you'll also need something that will send the pitch signal. Oh, my iPad's going to run out of battery soon. I got to switch iPads. So I'm using my iPad off the side of the screen to look at the chat. So yeah, I can go more into detail about that. Maybe it's kind of a big topic, like building a starter case. So if you have more specific questions, let me know. But I think that's kind of how I would get started. I guess my biggest advice would be don't buy quickly. Like really think about it, do your research, make sure you understand what your goals are and how each module you get is like really contributing to that goal, and don't just buy the newest thing because it's like shiny and you saw an exciting YouTube video about that. That said, I have a video coming on Monday about the Icaria filter, this guy up here, which is my favorite filter in the case. And if you watch that and want an Icaria, then I've done my job. I'm not paid by Bastel or anything, but I just really like that filter. And so I did it like a deep dive into that module that's going to be coming out on Monday, if you want to know all about how it works and some of the cool stuff you can do with it. Okay, let me bring the volume back up. I wonder if I had the volume set a little lower before. Maybe I did. I forgot where I had the main volume set at before. Let me know if my voice is too loud or too quiet compared to the music. Let's see, how long have we been streaming? About an hour and 45 minutes? This might be a good place to stop with the patching. If there are more questions, I'm happy to entertain those. Anyway, I didn't really, part of the point of this stream is to just start patching without planning anything in advance. So I wasn't necessarily trying to make a song or anything. Just kind of seeing where things take us. And in particular, I guess that today what we did was experimenting with using the sequential switch as a way of kind of doing audio rate modulation to make an interesting sound. Let me try unplugging and plugging in the clock to the Vice Versa so we can really hear the difference between the raw waveforms from Castor and Pollux and the effect that the audio rate modulation is having on using the switch. So if I unplug, listen to how different that is. And then I plug back in. So that woolly sort of atonal modulated effect is all happening from essentially amplitude modulation, from very quickly increasing and decreasing the volumes and swapping the left and right channels. That's so cool. I've never tried this before, but one of the fun uses of a sequential switch. Another thing I know about, but I actually have never tried myself with a switch, is like having a single pitch sequence, or I guess that's alternating between like different oscillators. So you're essentially playing like one like melodic line or something, but at some sort of rate of change, you're changing which oscillator is playing the line, and then experimenting with how fast you switch between the different oscillators. I think that could be a really cool thing to try. Maybe we'll do that next time. Now, see, I'm conflicted because, like, whenever I have an idea like that, I'm like, ooh, that would be fun to explore on a live stream. But then I'm also like, but maybe not having a plan is kind of what this should be about. I don't know which of the two I would rather do. I guess if I keep doing these, you know, weekly or at some rate like that, then it would always be fine to throw in a sort of planned idea among the unplanned streams. I don't know, any thoughts about that? Would you rather see like an off the cuff, I have no idea what I'm going to do, or like, I want to demonstrate specific technique X? I'm thinking maybe a healthy mix of both. Ooh, I just had one more thought that might be fun before we finish. You know, I'm just manually plugging in this cable on and off. But what if I kind of automated plugging this in and out? We can do that with kinks. Mutes by DivKit might be cool for that. Ah, that's an interesting thought. I mean, I do also have like CV control over mute status on the mixer. So, like, you know, it's got manual mute switches, but I can also control them. It's got this expander on the left, and you can plug in a CV or gate signal into the expander and then program via the screen what effect that has on which of the channels. It's like a modulation matrix, which is actually really cool. I've used it a pretty significant amount. So I should be able to program interesting mute patterns like that just with the mixer I already have. So what I was just thinking is, what if we take... Okay, I'm going to take this out for a second. Let's put the... Which signal... This is coming from channel 1. I'm going to send... Let's change this up. I'm going to send channel 1 into kinks. Oops, bumped the mic. Sorry about that. I need a longer cable. So kinks is this mutable instruments module right here, and one of the middle section is logic, which allows you to do like and or operations. I'm going to plug in the trigger that we're using to modulate or to advance the switch. I'm going to stick that into the in input on kinks, and then let's get this long cable plugged in again, and this is going to be, do I want max or min? All right, so max, yeah, so max and min are the two outputs on this, and they're kind of like and or. The module I'm talking about right now is kinks, K-I-N-K-S, by Mutable Instruments. It's a utility module that's got 3 different sections, like 3 different utilities. The middle 4 jacks are a logic circuit, so it's got 2 inputs, A and B, that can be audio or control signals, and then it's got 2 outputs, max and min, and you can think of those as and or. So it'll allow you to let the input signal of one pass through. How do I explain this? Like if you're using the max output, which is what I'm using, it's going to send out of the max input whichever the higher of the 2 voltages is on the in and out. And if you set it to min, then it'll be whichever of the 2 is lower. So I think right now I have it plugged into max, so it's just doing, you know, there's only one thing plugged in, And so whatever the high voltage is on the left side is always going to be the maximum of the two, because the right one is always 0. But if I change this to minimum, then we should hear nothing. Or we should hear no change. Like when I switch from max to min, listen to the sound. So there's max. And there's min. So you hear nothing on min. And the reason is because the two voltages that it's comparing are the fast clock signal from PAM and nothing. So nothing is the minimum of those two, and so it chooses nothing. But if I patch in a second signal to that in B output, then if that voltage is high, it sort of acts as a toggle for the A input. Let me demonstrate that with CV. So I guess I'm out of... I'll need a really long cable for this. Actually, I don't know if I have a cable long enough. Let me try... Maybe this will be long enough. I mean, I'm going to automate this in a second, but I just wanted to try demonstrating. Okay, so let me go to the overhead shot. I'm going to take one channel of Quadrat over here on the right case, and I'm going to plug that into input B. So you should hear nothing, but then as I turn up the offset voltage on that channel, it'll start triggering. So if I have it all the way on, then the input B voltage is always high. So the minimum of the two voltages is essentially whatever the left input is doing. So what I was thinking of doing is just having like a programmed gate for this. So that would be, get a blue cable, a short-ish blue cable. So let's take from output 5 on PAM. Let me switch to the left case. So what I'm doing right now is I'm sending, instead of a voltage that I'm controlling by hand into input B of kinks, I'm sending a clock signal URL from Pamela's Pro Workout, like a divided by 5. So it's kind of a slow signal. And then I'm going to change the gate length so that when the signal triggers, it's like pretty long. Like 80% width. And so what you should hear is like the audio rate modulation going in and out. Essentially like an LFO on whether or not the vice verga is advancing. And you can maybe see it if you look at this little yellow light next to my finger, right there, that LED. Vice verga is only advancing when that light is lit. TJ, thanks so much for hanging out. I appreciate it. So it's mostly on, but when the signal gets low enough, you stop hearing that audio rate modulation from the vice verga switching. Just again adds a little bit of timbral change and flavor. Okay, we're about to hit 2 hours, so I think that is a good stopping place. If you have any more questions about what we did today, feel free to leave them in the comments on the recording of the live stream. And I will be sure to check them out and answer any questions. I appreciate everyone that came to hang out. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad there were no technical difficulties like the last time I tried this. And yeah, I'm planning to do these on a regular basis, like maybe every week, if this is a good time. Works for me, like Friday afternoons. Good way to kick off the weekend. I would be remiss also to not mention that I have started a Patreon account. So if you end up watching a lot of my videos and you find them really useful, would appreciate any support. It's patreon.com/Perceptes, same as my YouTube username. That'll help me make more of this kind of stuff. It'll also give you access to download audio files of any of the music that I release on the channel. But as of the moment of recording, I'm just in the process of uploading all of that stuff. So you'll get my LP from last year, and I'll be uploading all of the other music that I put on the channel. Where to start your research? I would say there's a couple of good sources. Let me turn this down a bit so we're not getting blasted by this over and over. If you want to start your research into modular, couple of kind of general resources I would recommend. There's a YouTube channel called DivKid, who's like probably the most popular sort of YouTube video creator for modular content. He's a really sharp guy, knows a lot about the subject, and maybe not so much beginner content, but it's just very high quality explanations of things, examples, module reviews. So I would suggest subscribing to him and just kind of through osmosis learn as he posts videos. You can go back through his most popular videos of all time to find kind of ones that are most generally applicable. Also, if you look on the modular subreddit, like reddit.com/r/modular, they've got a bunch of links in the sidebar about like learning content, learning resources, like beginners guides and beginner YouTube series. Another good way that I can offer is just from content that I've made. There's a video I made maybe like a year and a half ago called Learning Modular Synthesis with VCV Rack. That's actually the main thing that I would say that I recommend. VCV is like a software modular environment that's entirely free. And so you don't have to buy anything to experiment with that. Oh, let me go back to my overview. You don't have to buy anything. You can download VCV for free and play with it on your computer, and it lets you do, install modules from a library of stuff into in sort of a virtual patch, and play around and drag your mouse to sort of do virtual patch cables connecting modules, and you can learn a lot about the basics of modular from that. And so I have a fairly long video that's like an hour and a half or 2 hours that's kind of like from the basics, like how do you use VCV Rack, and to help you understand the basics of modular synthesis using VCV Rack. So if you've got a couple of hours, if you like my style of teaching, that will be very beneficial, I think. There's also a forum on the web called Modwiggler, which is kind of like the main source for discussion on modular. And so you can learn a lot from reading threads there. The last resource that I think is really important for both new people and experienced modular people is modulargrid.net. And that is like a case planner. So it's got a database of all of the physical modules that exist. And you get like sort of like an empty case, and you can look through the library, pick modules, drag them into place. And that's what I use to design these, to make sure that everything that I was interested in fit into this beautiful grid. And also that the power requirements were acceptable, because the power to the modules is provided by the case. Like there's a PSU in the case, and it provides like a certain maximum amount of power, and each module draws power from that source. So you have to make sure that the collection of modules you buy, the sum of all of their power requirements is not greater than the amount of power that your PSU supplies. And Modular Grid is really useful there because it has a database of like how much power draw each module has. And so you can, create what you're interested in, and see what the sort of maximum number is, and make sure that you're not drawing too much power from your supply. Oh, my iPad died. So now I can't see the chat. Let me skip over to it on the computer. Actually, I guess I can just change where I'm sitting because I'm no longer patching. Let me close down my screen mirroring. Oh, where did it go? Ah, there we go. Yeah, so that's what I would recommend. Modular grid for planning your, looking at a database of modules and planning a rack. I would definitely recommend that. I would recommend DivKit is the best YouTube channel to follow for modular content, and ModWiggler is the forum. Modular subreddit for, you know, less. The modular subreddit doesn't have as much discussion as the ModWiggler forum, but there are a lot of good learning resources in the sidebar. So definitely check those out. And of course, my VCV rack video. Alrighty, I am going to head out now because it's been 2 hours. Thank you very much for everyone that stopped by and that chatted. Really appreciate the audience. This was a lot of fun. I will definitely be doing more of these. Okay. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Thanks again.